we have some terrible news. Marathon might be delayed. Sony admits Marathon feedback has been varied, but insists it will avoid repeating Concord mistakes and commits to launch by end of March 2026. The fact that the Concord is being mentioned in the same breath tells you how serious this thing actually is. And I mean, it should be treated seriously. Look, some people right now that are let down by a potential delay, which I believe it's delayed. Even Laura came out and said that, hey, it needs to be delayed. I'm looking for the point where Laura says if Sony wants Bungie to survive, they would in fact delay Marathon. If you could find me that timestamp. All right, let's just read this real quick. Sony has said it remains committed to live service video games despite high-profile failures such as Concord, and insists that Marathon will be out before April 2026, despite admitting the recent alpha had seen varied feedback. Sony's live service hero shooter Concord is one of the biggest flops in PlayStation history. I mean, I think the biggest, I don't know, is Concord the biggest flop ever? Like when I think of games that have messed up the most, I think Concord's the number one, right? I don't know, man. Y'all remember that game the day before? That game now. Those fuckers, you hear me? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we could talk about Concord and maybe even throw like Redfall in there or something like that. Although Redfall, I don't think it did any type of refunds. But the day before was like a straight up scam. That wasn't even a game. I think the article is a complete mischaracterization of what Hulse says. 6, if you can give me the actual clip or quotes, I'm sure they're going to mention it here. Now, amid disastrously low player numbers, Sony pulled Concord offline just 2 weeks after launch, which one estimate suggests it sold just 25,000 copies. It has proved a costly failure for Sony, with hundreds of millions of dollars wasted amid the closure of its developer Firewalk Studios. Now, what has Sony learned from the Concord disaster, and how does that relate to Marathon, Bungie's in-development extraction live service shooter? Herman Hulse, CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment Studios Business Group, was asked that question during an investor-focused interview. Responding, Hulse admitted that feedback to Marathon's recent alpha test had been varied, but insisted the game will be released during Sony's current fiscal year ending March 31st, 2026, and promised that the mistakes it made with Concord would not be repeated. Okay, so yeah, that is the end of Sony's fiscal year. When does the next GTA roll out? When's GTA 6 rolling out? I know it's 2026. Surely it's not March, right? Is it May? Oh, thank God. Whatever you do, my only suggestion is don't drop shit in May. Maybe not even drop shit in June, May, June, July. You know what I'm coming from? May, June, July. If I was a game developer, I would move my game. I would just, you know what I'm saying? Now, live service, we really see that as a great opportunity for us, Hulse said. But with this great opportunity are some unique challenges associated. We talked about some early success, as with Helldivers 2. We've also faced some challenges, as with the release of Concord. It is kind of crazy that you had two polar opposite experiences that occurred within a 6-month time frame. You know what I'm saying? You had one game that dropped, that being Helldivers 2. Incredible. People loved it. We loved it. Had such a great time. We even started a series. It was like This Week in Democracy. It was such a fun time playing that game. And it really defined the first half of that year, for us at least. And then you had Concord, which was the polar opposite of it. Despite even having it had some decent things. I mean, let me be real. Concord had some decent gunplay, but it just had nothing that made it stand out amongst other, really any shooter, any PvP game. Much less what was going to be on the horizon, that being Marvel Rivals. Now, I think some really good work actually went into that title. Some really big effort. But ultimately, that title entered into a hyper-competitive segment of the market. I think it was insufficiently differentiated to be able to resonate with players. It's a very elaborate way of saying he was just shite. And so we have reviewed our processes in light of this to deeply understand how and why that title failed to meet expectations and to ensure we're not going to make the same mistakes again. As I said earlier, we've introduced much more rigorous processes for revalidating our creative, our commercial, our development assumptions and hypotheses, and we now do that on a much more ongoing basis. That's the plan that will ensure we are investing in the right opportunities at the right time, all while maintaining much more predictable timelines. For Marathon, it's our goal to release a very bold, very innovative, and deeply engaging title. It's going to be the first new Bungie title in over a decade, so we're really excited for that release. We're going through the test cycles, we're monitoring the closed alpha cycle the team has just gone through, we're talking all the lessons learned, we're using the capabilities we've built in analytics and user testing to understand how audiences are engaging with the title. This also could, maybe this is why the narrative director just got moved up to creative director. So maybe this has something to do with some some of these comments here. Now, some of that feedback, frankly, has been varied, but it's super useful. That's why you do the testing, the constant revalidation of assumptions that we just talked about. To me, it's just so valuable to iterate and to constantly improve the title. So when launch comes, we're going to give the title the optimal chance of success. This cycle of tests, of iterate, test again, that is such a key component of the live service success, both leading up to the launch, but also throughout the life of the game. And we're committed to continuing to leverage our learnings to maximize engagement and player satisfaction throughout the life cycle of the title. Pulse failed to address the recent art plagiarism scandal that embroiled Bungie and Marathon. However, last month, Bungie was left scrambling to recover its reputation after yet another independent artist accused the studio of lifting their artwork in Marathon. The accusation prompted an immediate investigation and acknowledgement from the studio that a former Bungie artist had indeed used Fern Hook's work without compensation or credit. Soon after, Marathon game director Joe Ziegler and art director Joe Cross apologized on a painfully uncomfortable live stream that featured no Marathon art or footage at all, as the team was, quote, still scrubbing all of our assets to make sure that we are being respectful of the situation. Sony's live service plan has seen significant success, but also catastrophic failure. The Concord flop came after Sony had already canceled Naughty Dog's The Last of Us multiplayer game, and earlier this year, Sony reportedly canceled 2 unannounced live service games, one a God of War title in development at Bluepoint, the other in the works at Days Gone developer Ben, which recently suffered mass layoffs as a result. Let me just say this about the Naughty Dog, The Last of Us. It was reported that Bungie themselves actually were overseeing that game, and they themselves said that it wasn't going to make it. Really makes me wonder, was Bungie overseeing Concord? And who at Bungie is doing the overseeing? That's the other question. Who is this? Now, Sony announced plans in February 2022 to launch more than 10 live service games by March 2026, later saying the push would bring games of different genres to different audiences. It's been big on studio buyouts as part of the drive, bringing in Destiny developer Bungie, Jade Raymond's Haven Studios. Raymond has since left the company and now shuttered Firewalk Studios. But in 2023, Sony president Hiroki Totaki said the company was reviewing the 12 live service PlayStation games it had in the works and committed to launching only 6 of them by the end of financial year 2025, meaning by the end of March 2026. Totaki said Sony was still working on when the other 6 live service games would come out, adding, "It's not that we stick to certain titles, but for gamers, quality should be the most important." Earlier this month, Sony announced a new PlayStation studio called Team LFG and teased its debut game, which is a live service incubation project. Guerrilla's Horizon multiplayer game is also in development, as is Haven's Fair Games. Now, speaking more generally about Sony's live service ambition, Hull said the company remains very, very committed to building a diverse and a resilient live service portfolio. He pointed to MLB The Show, Destiny 2, and Helldivers 2 as a really good example of the type of titles we're looking to develop. These titles have already established an enduring set of player experiences and communities across quite a wide range of different genres, he said. Together, that provides a really good foundation for our ambitions in this category. I would say additionally, we are continuing to invest in new live services, with Helldivers 2 providing such a great example of the level of success we can achieve if we get everything right. That game has been a true breakout success. It's been attracting and retaining significant community and very engaged players since we launched that back in February 2024. And its ongoing success, I think, is further evidence in how we deal with the monetization. Microtransactions now in that game make up more than half of the revenue. Damn, and I actually feel like Helldivers actually has a pretty fair, I don't know, y'all tell me if things have changed. I feel like their in-game microtransaction system is pretty fair. So you can like accumulate the currency and everything else. And then the kicker, a commitment to releasing Marathon by the end of March 2026. We're also very excited about Marathon's anticipated launch in this fiscal year. Pulse confirmed. Okay, so some of you are saying that this article took Pulse words out of context. Tell me in what way? Because I feel like pretty straightforward. A lot of it was just direct quotes. Look, I think Marathon definitely needs to be delayed. And I am, there's the other side of things. It's like, is there concerns of more layoffs happening? Yeah. I mean, it really is. I don't know the deal that Bungie and Sony have intertwined with one another, but just from the words, we watched an entire video the other day, and it was such a good video here from Laura Fryer. Laura Fryer is someone who has worked in the industry for years. Highly suggest you guys check her out. But essentially, this was her comment on it.
And how many are fanning the flames of Bungie's destruction? Assuming Sony wants to keep Bungie alive, they probably need to delay Marathon. Then they have to show the team that they know what the problems are, and they have to fix them.
So even directly from her, and a lot of people be like, "Oh, Cross, you're sensationalizing again." Look, directly from her, even she says, assuming Sony wants to keep Bungie alive, they should probably delay Marathon. I think March 2026, maybe fine. You know what I'm saying? Give you some time, and they can collect feedback. And the other thing is too, Bungie, you could literally watch Arc Raiders. They'll launch in October of this year, and you could just, I wouldn't say steal their shit. No, I'm not saying that. But see what they do that's really right, and the things they don't do that are not that right, and implement those things. things. In March, they're gonna bump it to summer. Now you're getting into GTA 6 territory. Any developer that wants to drop in May of 2026, respect. Good luck. I just wouldn't. May, June, July. People are fanatics about Grand Theft Auto. Dude, people that haven't played video games in years. I run into, like, whether it's friends or family members who don't even really game, and they're hyped about the next GTA game. GTA is going to be everywhere. It's going to set incredible records. It is going to be the focus of every YouTube video you see, every Twitch stream that is live. Everyone is going to be playing GTA or watching GTA. And so all I'm saying is don't drop your game next to that shit. So we can pull up the direct comment here from Holes just to get confirmation here.
Failed to meet expectations, and to ensure that we're not going to make those same mistakes again. As I said earlier, we've introduced much more rigorous processes for validating, for revalidating our creative, our commercial, our development assumptions and hypotheses, and we now do that on a much more ongoing basis. And that's the plan that will ensure that we're investing in the right opportunities at the right time, all while maintaining much more predictable timelines. For Marathon, it's our goal to release a very bold, very innovative and deeply engaging title. It's going to be the first new Bungie title in over a decade. So we're really excited for that release. We're monitoring, we're going through the test cycles, we're monitoring the closed alpha cycle that the team has just gone through. We're taking all the lessons learned, we're using the capabilities that we've built in analytics and user testing to understand how audiences are engaging with the title. And some of that feedback, frankly, has been varied, but it's super useful. That's why you do these testing. And the constant testing and the constant revalidation of assumptions that we just talked about, to me, is just so valuable to iterate and to constantly improve the
Yeah, so pretty much what we just read. Okay.
Title. So when launch comes, we're going to give the title the optimal chance of success. And this cycle of test, of iterate, test again, that is such a key component of the live service success, both leading up to launch, but also throughout the life of the game. And we're committed to continuing to leverage our learnings to maximize engagement and player satisfaction throughout the life cycle of the title.
What is your philosophy around creating IP? Is it a priority, and how do you ensure that it is differentiated?
At our core, we believe that great new IP originates from passionate teams with amazing ideas. And it's our job as leadership to create an environment, to foster an environment in which these teams can succeed. As leadership, we support them with the tools, the capabilities, the structures that they need to develop those ideas into successful new IP. So we recently formed, out of incubation, 2 new studios, Dark Outlaw Games and Team LFG. And I think that kind of highlights further.
Chat, what is the team that is now over at Sony that is taking over Gummy Bears? Oh, that is Team LFG. Again, that's a team that was originally at Bungie, creating something called Gummy Bears. They broke away from Bungie. They now have gone under Sony, and that's who's making Gummy Bears.
Our commitment to the creation of new IP, as well as to our approach to innovation. These 2 teams, they're new, but they are comprised of veteran developers from across all different pockets of the industry. Their vision and their ideas have blown me away, and the passion behind it, I really and honestly cannot wait to help shepherd their projects into success. So both by investing in strong vision-led creative teams and by better leveraging, on the other hand side, data and understanding our portfolio, those 2 things together, we're now able to better explore new ideas and genres beyond the core competencies. And that helps us diversify our portfolio to appeal to new players everywhere.
Just listen to them, all business and investments. Why are we watching this? These are the people that ruin devs. I like to listen just simply because I don't listen to this whole thing, but I like to listen if it pertains to something that, like Marathon, what Sony's mindset is around Bungie and around Destiny 2 and Marathon. Now, I will say from some of the people I've talked to in the industry, it's kind of a bold thing to say, but essentially I have been told that Sony will not let Bungie fail. Because the assumption was after Firewalk Studios failed and they shut them down, that could the same thing happen to Bungie. I'm just letting you know that not from Bungie, but just from other people, just to say people in the industry, that Sony will not allow Bungie to fail. That doesn't mean that Bungie is going to be Bungie that it is today, but the name of Bungie they will utilize. It's deeper than just they don't want to let Bungie fail because of the name Bungie. Guys, what was the flagship studio for Xbox for a number of years? What was the studio that you would say defined the Xbox experience and Microsoft as a whole when it came to gaming? Bungie. Sony purchased Bungie, yes, you can say for a number of reasons. Live service games, expertise in live service games, you know, whatever you want to draw conclusions from that. But it's purchasing what used to be the flagship studio for Microsoft. You understand? It's an ego thing. And after watching Microsoft pick up, you know, Bethesda and Activision and whatnot, or in the process of picking up Activision at the time, there's some level of ego involved in this. Outside of just pure numbers is what I'm saying. I would say this, PlayStation without a doubt has won the previous generation. But if you were just comparing PlayStation and Xbox. But Xbox they're looking pretty fierce. And it's looking like their business model is working. It almost looks like Phil is fucking winning. Look, here's the thing. Main takeaway from all of this is this. It appears Marathon. I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's delayed. And I think it's a smart thing to delay it. Based on what we saw here recently in the alpha, I don't think it's going to be ready. I think having that runway time from now until March, number one, you can get in there and actually scrub the game. Because look, as bad as like the plagiarism stuff is, infinitely worse had the game been out, released to the public, and then the artist came forward. At least in this situation, there's time to make good with the artist directly, and also go through the game itself. And then of course, just check all of the assets. Because if those set of assets were stolen, who's to say tons of others aren't? But number two, from just a system standpoint, I think the game lacks identity at this point, and I think it just doesn't have depth necessary. And I think Bungie, when they roll it out, they need to overwhelm players with content. It doesn't need to be hey, we're going to roll out with just these few maps with these, 4 characters you can play or however many. Like, it needs to be everything you got. The Marathon ship map, all the raid puzzles that we've been hearing about, every character you could possibly play, all that shit needs to roll out at launch. You need players to walk away from that experience going, hot damn, that's a lot of game. Because if they go into it thinking, I'm getting half a game right now, and I've got to play for the next year and a half to get the rest of the game, then no one's going to play your game.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.